right, guys, welcome to a brand new episode of SideQuest Podcast. Listen in and level up. I have a great episode for you today, but first, as always, let's get through the show notes. If you're not following the Facebook page, head over to Facebook, type SideQuest Fitness into the search bar, and like the page. There, you're going to get updates on podcast episodes, articles when they get posted, and you're going to get a brand new taco recipe every Tuesday for taco camp. Plus lots of other shenanigans and nerd talk throughout the week, so make sure you head over to Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram. My handle is SideQuestFM. If you want to see some cool videos and random stuff on Instagram as well, you can follow me on Instagram. Same handle, SideQuestFM. Or follow me on Snapchat, SideQuestFit. Follow me there. Send me your questions. I want to get all the questions from you, help you as much as I can on your fitness journey or your journey in life, whatever it may be. But head over to Snapchat, SideQuestFit. Follow me there. You get a little more personal, in-depth look at the shenanigans I get into throughout every day. But I do love getting questions from the community, so please send them out to me. If you have not left a review for the podcast, please head over to iTunes. If you're not listening on iTunes and you listen on SoundCloud or Stitcher, leave a review there as well. When you leave reviews, it helps me move up the charts on the iTunes store so that more people can see and hear the amazing guests that I've had on and have on each and every single week. So make sure you head over there. And don't forget, if you haven't picked up your copy of the 7 Principles of Fat Loss, head over to sidequestfitness.com/7 principles, and you can pick up your copy of the 7 Principles of Fat Loss. These are the same 7 principles I follow each and every day and teach my clients to help them shred away more body fat, unlock heroic strength, and just look better naked. So if you want to unlock strength or just look better naked in the mirror, head over again, grab those 7 principles of fat loss, and start following those today. What's up, guys? Welcome to the show. So over the last few months, you have heard me talking about my online clients, and you've heard from a few of my online clients as well about what they've done on their fitness quest with me. With summer heading in, I am taking a few more clients on to help people get ready for summer, help you get ready for bikini season or swimsuit season, or maybe this is your first time. Maybe you've decided that that's it. You want to get in shape, and you need someone to help you with your journey. On your journey, you need a Gandalf and a Samwise to guide you as you head into Frodo. And I am your Gandalf and Samwise all packed in to one. I am taking on a few more clients. If you are interested, head over to sidequestfitness.com/coach and check out the page. You can apply there. You can find out more about what coaching entails and also see some of the amazing transformations that my clients have had while working with me. So head over to sidequestfitness.com/coach and apply today. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I have a great guest for you today. He is returning again to the show, the one and only Ben Johnson of BenTrained.com. And we're going to get into some really, really great stuff. Ben has an amazing story about a date that he recently went on, and it's just a great story to check out. So we're going to get in and talk a little about fitness, talk a little about cooking, and talk about the unique and creative way Ben saved the date recently with a girl he found in Utah. Let's get into the show.
Step up and you gotta get it fitness. Host Rob at the moment and the quest is you gotta check it and wreck it. You're breaking personal records, and with the help of the guests you won't be guessing on the lessons. That's a +5 fierce. Got a low-key bamf right here. You wanna meet him, there's no better way to greet him than to strike a boss pose. Take a look into the mirror.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. Man, I should have recorded the 15 minutes we were driving on before I hopped on and hit record. But my boy, the one and the only, I'm so excited to get to see him again in a few weeks in San Diego. You guys might hear San Diego mentioned in a couple of episodes coming up, but I got a big business trip coming up. But he's been putting out some really great content, doing some really cool stuff, and I'm so glad to have him back. Probably talk a little less about writing this time. But the one and the only Ben Johnson. Ben, welcome back to the show.
Hello. It's good to be back on here. And yes, I imagine we'll talk a little bit less about writing and M-dashes this time around.
Dude, I'm not going to lie, though. I've really, it's the one thing. Okay, so for anyone who enjoys the M-dash, you just got to go there. Alt or Option Shift and the dash key is your. I didn't know where it was. Didn't know where it was. So
it's a game changer.
Like 3 dashes in all my articles that I'm now going back and putting the M dashes in. I've been jiving on it, and I've noticed it. It's weird about writing is the more you read, you notice punctuation that you never. Up until like 3 months ago, I was like, no one uses colons. Colons everywhere.
That sounds really weird, but I know you're talking about punctuation, so it sounds way less weird.
Someone's going to fast forward and try to go through the intro, and they're going to be like, colons everywhere. And they're going to go, what?
I really feel like that should be the soundbite that you put like right at the beginning to like create intrigue, like colons everywhere.
Colons everywhere. I might do that. I would appreciate that. So what's interesting is I've noticed, because obviously I read a decent bit of your stuff, I get your emails, all that sort of thing. I've noticed you've been using M dashes more and more, and like deep down, I feel proud of that. I feel like I'm at least in part responsible. So that makes me feel good. Well, after we talked about it, I went and got On Writing Well, and I read that. I have Stephen King's On Writing Well and some other ones as well. But really been trying to focus on being more concise, getting to the point, going back and cleaning up old articles. Using the M, it's because like the thing about grammar, and see, I said we weren't going to talk about writing, but here we go.
We're diving in.
It's Lego blocks, man. Like, because Tanner and I will text each other, and he like accidentally sent me a semicolon one day, and I was like, "You didn't mean to send that, did you?" And he goes, "No, but it works." And I was like, yeah, I actually thought it was a really good use of the semicolon. Who am I and what has happened to me?
That's so funny. No, it's great. And what's interesting too is, you were saying like Option Shift dash to get the M dash.
Yeah.
On your phone, you can actually hold down, lightly hold down, and you can get both like the normal hyphen, the N dash, and then the M dash. And when I found that out, it was a very, very exciting day for me, which is one of the nerdiest things ever. I like excitedly texted a friend like, oh my gosh, I just figured out I can use an M dash on text messages. Like, and then I use them all the time. Like, you probably even noticed in my text messages.
The period button, you can get ellipses. I think if you hold down the question mark and the exclamation mark, I think you can get other ones. I think you can do. I think the upside down ones, because doesn't Spanish?
Oh yeah. Because Spanish uses. Because I speak Spanish, I text people in Spanish every once in a while. So yeah, those are in there, so you can get the upside down versions. I thought you were about to say like the interrobang or whatever it's called that Tanner's got tattooed on his wrist. I was gonna freak out.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Can you actually, now that you mention that, can you, just because I took French, okay? I thought if I speak French, the ladies will love me. No. In this letter I'm writing to my younger self, that's the one thing I need to point out, is like, Robbie, don't take French. It's a great language, but no one's going to suck your dick because you can speak French. Like, it's not going to happen. But
it's a romance language.
So is Spanish.
That it is.
But like, why? So why the upside down question mark and exclamation? Like, is there? Why? Or is
like
it just
the purpose behind it, and it makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Like, so in English, if you have a question, you don't realize it's a question till the end of the sentence when you see the question mark.
Right.
In Spanish, you have I don't know why it's upside down. I guess it just like looks cleaner that way. So like it opens up the question, so at the beginning of the sentence that it's going to be a question, so the right inflection to use while you read it, whether you're reading it out loud or whatever. So it just notifies you essentially of like, this is the feel of this sentence from the get-go.
Okay. See, I thought it was a phonetic thing where like we're talking about writing the language. I thought like when you ask, is this not the case in most? And honestly, I don't remember. No, I think it works. Bonjour. Doesn't your voice go up when you ask a question?
Yeah.
Is that okay? I was just wondering because like I guess reading it makes sense, but saying it you would know.
Yeah, saying it you would know. I'm meaning purely about like the written language.
Right,
so at the beginning of the sentence, like, hey, this is a question, which is obviously beneficial because I don't know about you. I've read stuff before where I'm getting through the sentence. I'm like, oh, that's actually a question. And I like have to reread it so that it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I was just like reading it as if it was a statement. And then there's a question mark. I'm like, start over, go. Okay.
What if the punctuation was all in front of like everything in English and it was like exclamation, you should yell this sentence, or like period. Like,
well, it would really get insane in text messages because everybody uses exclamations way too readily in text messaging.
Yeah. It would just be a box.
It would be the worst. I'm glad you don't do that in English.
So Ben, what have you been up to since you've been on the show? How's life treating you?
Oh goodness, life is an interesting adventure. It's been it's been busy in all kinds of good ways, which is like such a cop-out answer. It's the answer I have for everyone. If anyone's ever like, oh, how you doing? I was like, oh, I'm busy, but in all kinds of good ways, because that's exactly what it is. I've had a lot of like cool work opportunities popping up. I've been a lot more consistent about creating, not just creating. I've been consistently creating content, but especially publishing content on my own channels. So both on like social media, I've made a bigger push to consistently put like valuable content on Instagram. I've been publishing a lot more frequently, even on my own website. Not that I wasn't publishing frequently before. But there would be times where I maybe missed a week with a new article, but I'm very, very consistent for a little while now. Come out with some free stuff. I mean, you were part of the Swole Santas giveaway. That was a fun time. So lots of stuff going on, especially in like the business side of things, which I've found personally, the busier I am with work related stuff, with fitnessy things, with coaching, it's like obviously super fulfilling. I get to help people, help them change their lives and bring them closer to their goals and their full potential, which is great. And I find all kinds of fulfillment out of that. But usually the busier I get with work life, the less and less busy I get within my personal life or social life or dating life and all that jazz. So it's always an interesting balance. And so far, since the beginning of this year, at least, it's been a very, very busy work few months at this point, because, oh goodness, it's already March. I don't know what happened, but that's probably why I don't know what happened. I've just been nice and busy doing a lot of things, but very, very good things moving in good direction. So I'm excited about it.
Awesome. So I know you and I are doing this. You finished, and I'm near the tail end. It probably won't, because I'm traveling the next 2 weeks. I'm not going to get most of it done for the next 2 weeks. But finishing up this freak muscle thing from Ryan and Eric Johnson, Sons of Strength. Dude, you're looking good, dude. That back. I'm just saying.
It blew up on me. I'm very, very, I guess, blessed. I mean, I felt like I was not blessed back in high school, but I can gain weight very, very easily. Just my body type, things like that. I can very, very readily gain a lot of weight. Whether that's good weight or bad weight depends on what I'm doing. Yeah. But when I did Freak Muscle, it's a great program for building size. So, I mean, obviously I expect you to get that linked up in the show notes at this point. For anyone that's looking to get bigger, it's a fantastic way to go. And then I basically ate like it was my job for 3-4 months. I mean, it was crazy. And I'm all about flexible stuff as long as it's like within my macros and I'm getting enough of my fruits and veggies and things like that. Like I would not even be hungry and have a pint of ice cream as a snack just because I was trying to get as many calories in me as possible. It's very interesting. And I'm sure there are people who are listening and we've both gone through this, where if you do the cut bulk cut, whatever cycle you do, it's very interesting how when you're cutting, you're like, oh, God, I wish I had food. And then you get to a point where you're bulking and you're like, oh, God, I hate food. And I'm like, it's exactly how it is. Like people were like, oh, that sounds amazing. Like, no, it was cool for like a week, maybe 2 weeks. I'm sick of eating food, guys. Right. Like, I hate it.
But like we complain. I think about that. And I'm like, we complain about that. And I know so many people who already have issues with food. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? Humans like to complain because we will bitch and moan about, oh my God, it is so cold. I just want summer to be here. And then when it's 95 degrees outside, you're like, oh my God, it's too hot. Like
that's exactly what's happening right now. Like the weather just turned. It was like snowing a week and a half ago. And now it's suddenly a lot warmer. It's like, it's not even that hot yet. It's just like in the 70s. And a couple weeks ago, it was like in the 30s, in the 20s, like really, really cold. Oh. So this sudden change, I was outside earlier and I was like, it's too hot.
Oh, it flipped here. It flipped here on us. Stupid. It was like 75 like a week and a half ago, and now like there's the nor'easter in like New England and that blizzard. So people are like freaking out.
So you are very, very right. Apparently, we just like to complain no matter what the circumstances are. Like, oh, it's too cold. Now it's too hot. We just can't be satisfied.
Yeah. I don't have enough to eat. Well, there's a lot of people in the world who don't have enough to eat. I have too much to eat.
That's come on. Absurd complaint, right? It's just like, oh my gosh, I have all this food that I get to eat. I get to enjoy pint upon pint of ice cream and eat and eat and eat. My life is so hard. Like, it's ridiculous. But what's great about it is it worked really, really well. I gained, I can't remember the specific numbers right off the top of my head at this point, but I gained a ton of weight, and a ton of it was good weight. I even became like more symmetrical. Like I was a little asymmetrical, especially in my back before the program. And then like in the before and after, it's really, really clear. I mean, you've seen it. But like I believe it's my left side seems to be lacking in the before picture, and then in the after, they're both very, very even and a decent bit wider. I also just love pulling exercises. They're like my favorite. So yeah, freak muscle did all kinds of greatness for me. And I feel like the effects of it are still paying off, because as much as it was a ton of volume and things like that, I still feel like I came back from that, went back into my usual bread and butter, which is more strength and conditioning type stuff. And I've been setting PRs fairly consistently ever since. And my focus has been just on like more pure strength type movements. And maybe it's because I'm like 15, 20 pounds heavier, or maybe it's because I had this periodization, and so now I'm like writ to go with strength work, but like I'm setting PRs fairly consistently, and that for me is very, very exciting, because I'm all about that strength.
Yeah, dude, I think that was what I really hated after coming off that long bulk I had last winter, is that I had 4 weeks. Yeah, I had a month where I was doing some strength gains, because and this is just, this, but for people who are listening, first and foremost, 95% of people should get lean first before you ever try and bulk and add size. Just due to insulin sensitivity, your body's going to be better at building muscle when you have a better insulin sensitivity with a lower body fat. So lose the body fat first, then you can bulk. And then once you've added that muscle, it's not really super, you can go back to cutting, but you want to like spend a few weeks, like 4, maybe 6 weeks, getting strong. Just like ridiculously strong, because you've built that muscle. Those muscles need to start recruiting, get those motor neurons firing so that you can gain strength and put that muscle to use. Then when you cut, that muscle is firing, your central nervous system is firing, you're using that muscle, you're going to stay stronger, and you're going to burn calories and make your cut a little bit easier, because you're able to hang on to more muscle mass.
And what's neat is lean mass will translate into more fat loss when that time comes, right? So you've like developed this lean mass, even packing on a few pounds of lean mass, which would be fantastic after a bulk. Like a few pounds of lean mass, a little bit can go a long way as far as like daily caloric expenditure is concerned. So then instead of having to like diet down to like 1,800 calories, maybe you're dieting down to 2,000 calories, and that extra 200 every single day, like it makes a difference, because you're able to get the same fat loss result, but you're not having to starve yourself as much. I actually wrote an article a little while ago. It was like, hey, you want to lose fat, like build lean mass. Which is essentially talking about these types of principles of just like how lean mass is a huge difference maker when it comes time to lose fat again. Right.
Yeah. It's it's like anything, man. You gotta nail the basics, get down, then build, then get some strength and then cut again.
And strength is just fun. I don't know. I love getting strength.
Well, and you can. That's the thing. Like you can gain strength. And when I say strength, I'm not saying you can gain strength while in a deficit. You can get stronger, especially if you're completely new. You're going to get a lot stronger because your body's going to use the muscle that you already have and continue to build more. But over time, as you train more, you want to have some phases where you focus on strength and just get as strong as possible so that you can put all that muscle you built to good use. My ass looks great, but if those glutes aren't firing and working as well, what's the point?
Well, and strength really goes both ways. And I feel like this is something a lot of people don't realize, that most people associate strength with size. Now, being strong can help you put on size, but also being strong can help you shed tons of fat. Because if you just think about it on a very, very like simple level, the amount of work you do is going to change how many calories you burn in like any given workout, right? And if you're able to, say, deadlift 400 pounds instead of 300 pounds, your workout, even if it's a fat loss workout, will burn more calories deadlifting 400 pounds than it would, or it's just, going to be more work. It's going to be more effort. It's going to be better for fat loss if you're able to move more weight as opposed to moving less weight. Now, obviously you can move less weight and be explosive and all that sort of stuff, but the stronger you are, the more readily you'll be able to increase your capacity, your like training capacity, and you'll be able to lose more fat. So like getting strong is not just a part of building size. It's a part of fat loss as well. And that's something I'm huge on doing, is really harnessing strength for fat loss, because I don't know, I feel like it's an oft neglected component, because a lot of people just think of like endless cardio and lots of like high intensity interval stuff. And I love it. Like that stuff is effective and it's quick too, which is great. But like, it's also pretty quick to do a few sets of really heavy deadlifts and get your heart rate through the roof by a really high level of intensity with some low volume. And that can be great for fat loss.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, again, study after study has shown that, strength matters. Strength is relative to, longevity. Like the stronger you are, the more likely you are to live longer, because you're able to move your body through space, and strength is, if you don't use it, you lose it, essentially. So you want to continue getting as strong as possible as you age. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to be 50 and deadlifting 600 pounds.
I have no anticipation of doing that. I mean, I love my deadlifts, but I still haven't hit 400, and it's mental. I know what it is. It's all mental. The strength. Well, and that's the thing that drives me nuts is my head gets in the way so much. And one of my favorite, I don't know, I hate the word hack, but one of my favorite little hacks or tricks or whatever, I feel like both of those come with such negative connotations in my mind. But one of my favorite ways to get around that, and I don't know if it depends on the kind of gym you're at, but using a mix of kilos and pounds. And then just going till it feels really heavy. If you're supposed to do heavy work. Yeah. So you're not thinking of how many pounds are on the bar, and you're just making the weight move. And then you get out your calculator, you do all the math, and it's oh, I just accidentally hit a 15-pound PR. It felt heavy. Of course, I was trying to go heavy. I just didn't know that I had this many kilos and this many pounds. And when I finally added it all up, it ended up being X, which was more than I thought I could do. So you're able to kind of take your head out of it by not even thinking about what weight is on the bar. Because for me, it was a while ago, but I had a goal of deadlifting 500 pounds. But I had this absolute mental block. Anytime, even if it was a block pull, like a rack pull, something that I should be able to lock out, I would get stuck every time because in my head, I was oh, this is 500 pounds. This is really heavy. And then the time that I finally pulled 500 pounds, it was on accident. It was 502 or 503, again, because of a weird mix of plates and kilos. It was 502 or 503, and I was just supposed to pull a heavy double. That was my programming that day. It was a heavy double. I pulled a really heavy weight. I pulled it for 2 reps. I did the math. I did the math again. Because I thought I must be doing something wrong, because my goal was to hit a 1 rep max over 500, and I just pulled it for 2. And I was just what on earth? It was because my head wasn't getting in the way.
And then if you'd even added 5 pounds, I bet 5 pounds, your brain would have been nope, not going to do it.
Yep. Yeah. And that's the thing is, if I would have tried another set, I was pretty exhausted at that point, but if I would have tried another set, or if I would have added a couple more pounds and gone for a 1 rep max, I probably would have gotten my sticking point is the exact same spot every single time. It's just below my kneecap. I would have gotten to there. I would have been stuck, and it would have been my head getting in the way. Cause the strength was there, but my head would often keep it from fully being unleashed. I
like that idea of mixing kilos with pounds, but that's not going to happen in most gyms. You have to be at a gym that has that. But that's a good trick. Is there anything else that you give your clients or something people can do to get their head out, to get out of their head?
Oh, that's tricky. Well, for me, because a lot of the people I'm working with, their main goals have to do with fat loss or weight loss.
Right.
A lot of the time, I'm actually having them focus more about the weight on the weight on the bar rather than the number on the scale. Now, if their goal was to hit new PRs and reach a new level of strength, I would find more ways to get creative and have them not focusing about the weight on the bar. But one thing I say a lot of the time to people I'm working with is focus on the weights and the plates, and don't worry about the number on the scale, because that'll take care of itself. If you're getting stronger, if you're doing the program, if you're being consistent, and you're working on small little victories every week, setting new PRs, the weight's going to take care of itself. So it's that same thing of kind of taking your head out of it and getting rid of those mental blocks, but it's actually for them, because their main goal is losing fat or losing weight or whatever it might be that's more weight or body fat related. It's taking their head out of that and putting it more into the weight, the weight on the bar rather than the weight on the scale. So I do that a lot with people, but usually it's kind of the other way around, whereas I'm having them focus more on what's actually on the bar rather than what's on the scale. But the concepts are pretty straightforward and simple. You could even, it depends on the kind of bumper plates you have, but there are times where I'll just toss 35s instead of 45s on.
Yeah.
For a few plates, or start with a 25 and then start doing my 45s. And if I sit and think about it for 2 seconds, I can, yes, do the math. But if I'm not worrying about that, I know okay, I don't know, it's the top of my head, I know any odd multiples of 45 thanks to the fact that I've been in gyms for forever. So I can glance at a bar and know how many pounds it is. But if a 25's in there, or a 25 and then a 15, it throws me off. So I don't know exactly. I have to actually think about it. And then I just stop myself from thinking about it if again, if I'm trying to get my head out of the weight on the bar and just pull and just go. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing, but I've found that it does a lot of good for myself. Also does a lot of good for people I've worked with. I mean, there will be times, even if it is just plates, like, I haven't been working with people in person. I've been 100% online for a little while now, but back when I was in person, people would ask me like, how much does this weigh? And I just wouldn't tell them until they pulled it. And I'd be like, hey, by the way, you just set a PR.
I've done that. I've done that as well, because it's, well, that's like, even when we were in Austin. Now, granted, and there's another thing, and I've mentioned this before, the Kohler effect. It's a psychological thing that basically says the weakest person in a group will do everything they can to stay, with the strongest. They don't want to show that they're the weakest. But it's a weird thing where, like, psychologically, you'll actually do better in a group that is better than you, which I think is, again, another point for why you need to surround yourself with people who are really, really good at stuff.
Absolutely.
That's the only way to get better. But I've done that with clients. I don't tell them the number. Don't tell them. Just lift it. What is it? Don't worry about it. Just lift it. You got this. Boom. And you're right. PR. Set.
Yep.
Done.
Like, and like, if their head was in it, they would get completely distracted. They'd get completely worried. And like, I don't know. The mind is a very, very powerful thing. And if there's one thing I've found with anything strength related, if you believe you're going to be able to lift it, you're going to be able to lift it. But if you let your head get in the way and if you think like, oh, I've never lifted this much before, or like, then your head gets in the way.
Yep.
Like, honestly, today, so I set a PR today. I was really excited about it. And it was with weighted dips. I love weighted dips. Like, I don't know. I can't bench. I've never been able to bench over 300 pounds, but it's because I don't care about the bench and I care a ton about my weighted dips. So I'll do really heavy weighted dips. And I set a PR today on my weighted dips, the first set. And I did like a couple working sets of this weight. It was more than I had done. So it was just, I did 2 heavy singles. So two sets of a really heavy one, with a ton of rest in between. But the first set was hard. Like, I felt like I took 3 years to lock it out. And I was like, halfway through, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get this. And then I got it. And the second set, super smooth. Because mentally, I was like, oh, I know I can do this. But the first time, I didn't know I could do it because I'd never done that much before. And it was really, really hard and like grind. Okay, there we go. Got it. And then the second set, like, in my head, I was like, I got this. And I went down, came up, and it was like, honestly, probably two times as fast in terms of just like movement speed than the first set. And I was like, wow, like, why was the first one so hard? It's just because it was all mental.
Yeah, it's a mind muscle connection, man. We tell our minds to turn off, and the muscles are like, nope. You already told me to turn off. I'm done. I don't care.
Yep, that's it.
I don't care.
Taking a nap.
So Ben, you have a great story I want to talk about. You mentioned you've been sort of all in the business mode, and you see that your business goes up, your social life goes down, so you're trying to even that out. It's tough. I mean, granted, I have someone to hang out with every night, but still, it is a tough thing to do. But you, sir, are a romantic at heart, and I, as the hopeless romantic I am, we got to talk about this story. So,
for sure.
Tell the audience about your little romantic rendezvous and the quick thinking skills you have that saved the evening. And I guarantee you, I get some emails going, "What's his number? And how do I get a hold of him?"
Yeah, no, honestly, if anyone lives even close-ish to Utah at this point, like, I don't know, we can meet up, we can have a good time. Okay, so I mean, this is such an interesting story, and it's super funny. So I mean, obviously, you know this story, and that's why you're having me share it. But for the sake of the listener, Robbie and Tanner, who I'm sure most listeners are familiar with at this point. So Robbie, Tanner, and I were in this group chat talking about an amazing book called The Name of the Wind. And I had this date, and I was really excited about it. It's this girl that I think she's amazing, all that sort of jazz. And so I was telling them about it, like even leading up to it and like prep and all that stuff, because, we're bros and we were broing out about nerdy literature and going on dates, and because that's apparently what bros do. We're not talking about bicep curls. We're talking about The Name of the Wind and Ben's dating life. But so the background of it is so crazy. As like a really, really brief, like quick synopsis, this is the girl I had met a long, long time ago. We actually matched on Tinder, chatted for a little bit. It like ended oddly and abruptly, and I wasn't sure if she was saying it was odd. And so I just like didn't even pursue it anymore because I was like, I don't know. Months later, turns out she like moves into my apartment complex. We didn't recognize each other because we matched on Tinder. We end up chatting one day, and a month later, she happens to be going to Chicago the same weekend I end up going to Chicago. We like basically, I mean, she had work stuff. I had stuff I was doing in Chicago, which was basically consisted of eating pizza. So like, we matched on Tinder. I went to Chicago to eat pizza for a weekend. It was great. Like, you can ask Simon, who I got pizza with like 3 times. I ate a ton of pizza that weekend, and it was fantastic. I'd never been to Chicago before, and I was like, all right, well, I should go. But anyways, this girl and I end up going to Chicago. And while we're there, I accidentally realize, like, well, not accidentally. I mean, I realized that I accidentally went on a trip to Chicago with a girl I had matched with on Tinder months before. Like, I don't know. I wrote an article all about that, and it's kind of why I think Tinder's ridiculous, because I didn't even remember her. So there was like no connection. But we got along really well. She wasn't even single in Chicago. And then now fast forward a few months, she's single. And I thought this girl was great ever since I matched with her on Tinder. And then we went to Chicago, and I was like, oh, this girl's great. Oh, she's also the girl I matched with on Tinder. And then months later, she's single. I'm like, ooh. It's time to do some work. Obviously, I wanted to be respectful. It was a recently ended relationship. I waited a few weeks. Like, we were in touch. We were friends, because obviously after Chicago, I wasn't like trying to swoop in and be a jerk like that. But anyways, I finally am like, all right, I'm gonna take her on a date. Call her up. She says yes. Miracle. And so I'm taking her on this date. Now, she is someone who is a fan of singing. And here in Utah, there's actually this place. It's a little ways away from where I live. It's about 30-ish minutes away. But it does live band karaoke, which I grew up doing all kinds of musical things. So I love this idea. I don't love singing, and I'm not very good at it, in my opinion, but it's like live band, it's karaoke. I'm just like, all right, this is a good time. I went once before with some friends. Like, a friend of mine's dad is in the band that does it. It's just at this random bar, and it's a super good time. So I was like, this will be a fun date. She enjoys singing. I think like it's cool to step out of your comfort zone and all that jazz. So like, for me, it's a fun thing to go do, because like, stepping up on stage, like, I play bass, stepping up on stage and playing bass, I'm totally comfortable. Being on stage in general, I'm totally comfortable. Being on stage and singing, not so much. So like, it was a great, like, I'll step out of my comfort zone, have a good time with this girl. And like, she's attractive and fantastic and all that jazz. So we go. Now, leading up to I thought of something wildly important. I was like, all right, I have to be sure to remind her, because it's a bar. I have to be sure to remind her to bring ID. Now, for context, I live in Utah. It's like the driest state in the world, probably. And I'm also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like Mormon, tithes, tags. I did all that stuff. Not quite like the musical, but like the real life version. And if you know anyone who's LDS/Mormon, you probably know that we don't drink. So in like social get-together, social gatherings, like, alcohol's rarely, if ever, even there. And that means that we're not accustomed to taking our ID places when we're going out and doing stuff with friends, because normally we're not going to bars. Normally we don't need ID to get in.
Right.
However, this Club 90 or whatever it's called is a bar. So you need ID to get in, which I knew and I thought of in advance. I was like, all right, yeah, I need to remind her to snag her ID so that we can get in. And of course, in my boyish, giddy excitement, I completely forget to mention that to her. So pick her up. I'm jazzed. We hop in the car, like, chilling, cruising, and I don't even think of it until we pull into the parking lot. I throw the car in park. I'm like, oh yeah. Do you have your ID with you? Because that's kind of important. So that's like 100% on me for not remembering. Like, I thought of it, forgot to say it, and then we get there, and it's just like, whoops. And so she's like, I don't. I'm like, okay. So, we go in and we're talking to the person at the front, like trying to see if I can smile, wink, and nod and get her to let us in. And she's just like hard line. She's like, no. And it's not even like they just look at them. They were like literally scanning each driver's license. So it's just like, all right. So we like talk with her for a second. She's like, nope, sorry. I could lose my job. And like, I'm totally like, I get that, understand it. I'm not like mad at her for doing what she's supposed to do and keeping her job and means of employment and all that jazz. So it's about, at this point, because it was about 30 minutes away, that stuff starts around 9. We leave the club, go back to my car, and it's like 9:30 on a Thursday night in a town that I'm completely unfamiliar with, Sandy, Utah. Now, Utah on a Thursday night closes pretty early in the evening. So I'm like hopping on Google and I'm trying to think of different things that we could do. Luckily, I thought of, so there was this pastry place not too far away, a little bit closer to actually like Salt Lake City. Sandy's just a little way south of Salt Lake City. So a little closer to Salt Lake City, there's this great French bakery. I was like, ooh, maybe that's still open. Hop on Google. Her and I are like having a conversation back and forth. Meanwhile, I'm over on Google, like trying to figure out what we're going to do with the rest of the night. So it's not just like this weird doing nothing date. So I'm hopping on Google. We're like talking about like the song list for the karaoke, and like she's talking about what she would have chosen. And I'm like, oh yeah, Gourmandise closes in 15 minutes. We can't make there in time. And then, so I'm like thinking through all these contingency plans, which it was tricky to come up with because I didn't know anything that was around. I had to just use like Google Maps. But I thought of this idea because we had like her apartment and my apartment had gotten together for dinner not too long before. And while we were doing that, she had mentioned something about how she's creative. She does like musical things and stuff like that, but not really like art, like painting. So I thought, like, made a mental note at that moment. I was like, ooh, so like potential date idea, doing something painting related. Now, lucky for me, when I was a little kid, we had a babysitter named Jean, and Jean was the best. Like, my parents would go on a date night every Friday. Jean would come over and babysit us. When she did, we would do like arts and crafts type things all night. It was great.
Yeah.
And there was this like cannot fail version of painting. I did air quotes right there, by the way, but like cannot fail version of painting that we did with Jean all the time. There was one time my parents went away for a weekend. Jean was there all weekend, and we made like close to 100. My brother and I with Jean made almost 100 of these things. You basically just fold a piece of paper in half with a little, like some globs of paint, and you just move it around. And then you open it up. Like, you don't want it to sit too long because then it dries and sticks, but you open it up and you have like this really like weird, like abstract ink blot type art. And it's like, you cannot fail. A lot of it turns out looking really interesting. So I think of that. I'm like, all right, cool. So I hop on Google. Like, well, I didn't even get off Google. So I Google like craft stores like Michael's and like Joann's. And there are 2 close by. I'm like, yes. Oh, but they all just closed. Okay. So they closed at 9. So like not even open. I'm like, wait a second. There's a Walmart down the street and you can buy just about everything at Walmart. So I, car back on, we're backing out of the parking lot, and I ask her what her 3 favorite colors are, because you don't need a ton of paint for this stuff. And I figure we just like use some of her favorite colors and maybe something like for contrast or whatever. And so like, as we're driving over to this Walmart that's down the street, we're figuring out like, all right, this is what we can do. And I'm thinking through my head, like, all right, like we can get all these supplies, but where on earth are we going to go? Because again, we're in Sandy, Utah, and I don't know if there are parks nearby. It's also still kind of chilly. I'm just like, struggling. So I think through it. I'm like, all right, so we need like some cardboard. We'll just use like the trunk of my car as a table. We need like some cardboard or something to cover that up. We need some paint and we need some paper. And if we get those things, we'll be good. We'll be able to come up with something, and it won't be like a complete waste of a night. So we head over to the Walmart, hoping that they have the right stuff. It's Walmart. So they do. It was tricky to find it. And we like even asked for help, and people didn't understand what we were asking. And it's Walmart, mind you, we got there just before they closed. So they apparently closed at 10. So we're like walking through this Walmart as they're closing down. We find the stuff we need. But instead of cardboard, we got like giant, like party, like cheap plastic, table covers for like a party, like, birthday party. So we got like a small pack of those that had like 3 of them. We grabbed paint, we grabbed paper, and then we buy this. Also hand sanitizer, because sometimes you can get paint on your hands. And so we buy all the stuff, and we're just like chatting, and it's kind of like I'm just like rambling in my head to figure out like how we're going to make this work, but like trying to be congenial and carry on a normal conversation and like be in the date. So I felt like all over the place. And then we walk outside, and originally I was like, all right, so we'll do this outside. We'll do it on top of the car. But I wasn't really like thinking through things. During the day, it was sunny and kind of nice, like not too cold. But at this point, it's like 9:45, almost 10. And it's cooled down, because it was still February. So it was like chilly, cooled down a ton. And the breeze had picked up. So I'm like, all right, clearly there's no possibility of doing this on like the trunk of the car. So we have to do it in the car. Luckily, I have now 3 massive plastic covers. So we basically do our best Dexter impression, and we cover the backseat of my car, like fully covered with like these plastic covers for tables. So it's just like all this plastic in the back of my car. We're sitting in this like empty Walmart parking lot. We brought down the like the center thing. I've got like a little sedan. So like in the back seat, there's a little center thing that you can like bring down. I don't know what purpose it really serves, but it comes down. So that's like a little like table for us, so to speak. I have like a shard of cardboard in the back, like in my trunk, that we use as like the hard surface, because having a hard surface is pretty critical for this this version of painting. Put that, like turn the car on, put some heat on, put some good mood setting music on, because yeah, not really, but we were in the backseat of my car, so mood setting music would be fitting. But we're just sitting there and we do this paint stuff. We do it for a little while, and I feel like I hopefully salvaged it. But the whole time I was like so out of it mentally, in terms of like just trying to scramble and figure out stuff to do, and then like sitting there and like we ran out of space to like put the little paintings we were making as we're just like sitting there chatting and making these paintings. So I like every time had to open the door, lean out of the car, set it down on the ground, lean back in the car, close the door, and hope that the breeze didn't blow it away. And like it was such ridiculousness. So I drop her after all of that, and I'm just like, what just happened? Like, it was the like weirdest turn of events. I feel like I felt like I still had a good time, all things considered. I feel like I brought it all together. And then like the nerd in me at the end of it even like quoted Neil Gaiman in his commencement speech. And I was just like, oh yeah, you know, I don't know if you've seen that. And one, she knew who Neil Gaiman was, which counted for major points, because a lot of people are like, oh, who's that? But I like talked about Neil Gaiman's commencement speech, and in that speech he talks about like when life gets hard, when stuff comes at you that you don't expect, make good art. So I was just like, obviously tonight did not go as planned, but we made good art. And I, you know, like blah blah blah, like I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was the strangest turn of events. I still think we had a good time, but I basically finished the date like with no clue of if she was like, oh, that was the worst date of all time, or if it was like, oh, wow, he really thought on his toes and made something out of nothing. And then, you know, obviously overthought everything thereafter and was just like, wait, what's going on? I don't even know. I don't know what she's thinking or feeling. So it was such an interesting adventure.
So was there a second date?
Well, you already know the answer to that. So yes, there was. The following week, we actually went to karaoke. We both brought our IDs that time, and we sang. I totally crushed it with Miley Cyrus's Party in the USA, and by totally crushed it, like I was only a little pitchy. Basically, like imagine what Randy Jackson always said on American Idol, like, it was a little pitchy, it was just all right for me. That would have been what he said at the end of mine, no doubt. She did a really good job. She sang Put Your Records On, but she's like a good singer. I just pretend to be able to carry a tune. So we did go the following week, and it was a good time. But it was such a strange turn of events that first time around. The redemption date was a little bit better, that's for sure. Has there been a third date? Yeah. Now there is the question. So I after the karaoke like success date, I called her up to ask her on another. She actually had lived in China for a while, and her like year mark of being back from China was like right at the beginning of this month. So I was going to take her to get some mediocre Chinese food at some random Chinese place nearby, because obviously it'd be mediocre. We're not in China, we're in Utah. So I was going to take her to do that. I called her up, and what's great is she like called me back to explain this, which I really, really appreciate. Like, cause I hate when people aren't upfront and honest, especially in like dating and relationships. So she called me back to be like, hey, I'm kind of still in a weird spot with dating. Like, I know it's been a bit since the breakup, but like, I'm just not really into dating at all right now. So I don't know. I could be totally wrong here, but I feel like she was more saying no to dating in general rather than like me specifically, hopefully. But like we're still at this way. And because she made that call and because she was upfront and honest and told me what was up, like we're still good friends. Like we've gotten together since then, just not necessarily on a date specifically, which is totally fine. Like I even sent her a text the following day, just again, like to reiterate how much I appreciated the fact that she called and told me that. And then essentially was like, so like when and if the timing ever is right, I'd love to take you on a date again. But if that doesn't happen, happy to be a friend. Cause that's legitimately what it is. Like I think she's great and I'd be happy to take her on a date. But if that's not something that's ever going to happen, like I still think she's a cool person and enjoy being friends. So we'll see. I'm definitely not like sitting around and waiting, because that would be foolishness. But, we'll see if anything pans out, mainly because the story of it would be hysterical. Like, oh yeah, we matched on Tinder and then didn't talk for months and then went to Chicago and then like kind of became friends while she was dating this other guy. And then they broke up. And then we went on what could arguably be called the strangest date of all time and sat in the backseat of his car, but didn't even like do anything like that. We just were painting. Like, it would just be a funny story. But yeah, who knows what'll come of it.
Oh man.
Yeah, aren't you glad to not be dating anymore? My good. Well, like I obviously.
No. I'm gonna be honest. I kind of sucked at the whole dating thing. Like in our text message thing, like when you were like, guys, what should I do? Like with that piece of art you made, and I was like, here's what you should do, and both you and Tanner were like, yeah, that's what you should do. Like, I'm really good giving other people advice. I'm really awful at taking it myself.
That was really solid advice, though. So that everyone knows, of the different like pieces of art that we made, she had one that was a favorite. So I went and got just like honestly, it was a like super cheap frame at a random craft store, put it in a frame and dropped it off with a note. And Robbie basically was just like, ooh, have the note say something like this. And I didn't copy it verbatim, but like it was the feel and the delivery was solid. So I ended up dropping off to ask her on that second date. I ended up dropping off a note with a frame of her. I mean, I included a few, but the one that was displaying in the frame was her favorite. And it basically said stuff along the lines like, hey, we should make good art again. This time actually singing though. So that was how I asked her on that second date, which was, I mean, very well played. I mean, and for a ginger, like for someone who has no soul, you really like that. You almost seemed like a person there.
I mean, it's better than the first thing I ever said to my wife, which was awful.
Luckily you've improved. But what's funny, it's like aren't we all experts when it's not us?
Oh, dude, totally.
Like when it's my roommate, I'm like, bro, say this, trust me. Yeah. And then if I'm myself, I'm like, oh no, I can't say it. And I like overthink everything, and then I end up just like, I don't know what to say. Like, it's so funny,
dude. Same thing. And that's like most problems in life. Like you go to someone you trust, and they're like, dude, do this. And then like it flips around, they're in some shit, and like you're the one giving them advice, and you're like, why can't I take my own advice? Like why didn't I delete this? Like, because I will tell people, and I know it sounds awful, but if you really hung up on someone, one of the best things for you to do to heal for a little while is like delete them out of your phone, delete them off Facebook, like just don't put yourself in that situation. So many times I didn't delete people.
First, if you're trying to get over something, like, because you're not even trying, and you're just like, oh, look at them having a fantastic life without me. And like, obviously it's a highlight reel because it's Facebook and that's all it ever is. Yeah. But it's just like, oh my gosh, they're like, and so just like seeing a couple pictures on Facebook, you're like, oh, they're not even hurting. Of course they're hurting, but it seems as if they're just having this fantastic time. You're just like, oh my gosh. There's a song called Jealous by Labyrinth where he talks about like basically I'm jealous of the fact that you're happy without me. And I like, it's like the most heartbreaking song in the world. It's a gorgeous, beautiful song too, but like, it's so heartbreaking. But that's how it is. Like you see someone like, oh, they're off like having a barbecue with friends. I'm sitting in my room scrolling through Facebook because I have nothing to do. Like they're winning. It makes getting over someone so hard in this day and age. Well, unless you do like what you mentioned, like,
but see, and that's the thing. It's like, oh man, I sound like a horrible person saying this, but it was true because like you see that, and that's why one of the first things I told people, and maybe this is horrible, but okay, this was 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old Robbie. I don't know if 30-year-old Robbie would say the same thing, but what I told people was, look, dude, you got to view it like a game. And either you're going to go on offense or you're going to go on defense. And right now, if they're showing you they have a better life, they win the fucking game. And you're going to sit at home miserable because you feel like you lost. Go win the game. Go make them feel like they should sit at home and cry in the corner because your life is better than theirs. Like, most of the time you're involved doing
it's kind of how it is. And whether you want to call it a game or you want to be like Pat Benatar and call it a battlefield, it's all the same sort of thing. You need to do what's best for you, and wallowing is never that. And what's interesting, I think, about this kind of like what we're talking about now is how full circle it is with what we were talking about before, because it's all just your head getting into it.
Yeah.
Like your head getting into it and like trying to get over someone and seeing that they're having this great time and your head gets in the way. You having great advice for other people, but not yourself. It's because your head and emotions are getting in the way there. It's interesting just how it all has come together.
So, dude, it totally comes full circle. I mean, we all, One of my best friends in college, like he would talk about his girl all the time. And 12 people would give him advice, wouldn't listen to a damn person. So we stopped. We just stopped telling him to do stuff. We were like, you just go do your thing. You're going to do your thing. You know what? Like, you just want us to agree with you, and you're talking. You're trying to. And we do
looking for validation and looking for advice are two very, very different things.
That is a very, very good point. Many times we are looking to prove ourselves right and talk ourselves into believing what we believe, whereas looking for advice is totally different. Yes. But dating can do that.
Dating's the worst and the best. So this is my thing. Like you mentioned, I'm a hopeless romantic. I totally am. I'm such a relationship-y guy. Like, just my natural tendency is like, I want to be in that relationship. I just want to like have that person that I'm really, really close with, that confidant, that best friend that I can like sit and do nothing with and have a fantastic time, and then go do anything with and have a fantastic time. But in order to have that, I have to go on like a ton of first dates and things like that. And first dates drive me nuts because I'm someone who's all about connection, and like I love connecting with individuals. Like, it's so much fun for me. And most of the time, first dates are just different versions of roughly the same exact thing, talking about a ton of surface level stuff that doesn't actually matter, and you don't actually get to know the individual. Like, I don't know, I've been on dates where like, I don't know, people are asking me my favorite color. Like, it's green, but that doesn't make a difference in like who I am as a person.
Dude, why don't you just break the mold and not ask those questions and just like...
I don't. Or if I do, so there are like certain small talky questions. Like, so this is something I've actually started doing a decent bit kind of recently. So there's like, especially I live in a town where there are a couple of colleges close by. So there are a lot of people in their like early to mid 20s, and a lot of people still in school. So like, where are you from? And what are you studying / what do you do if you're me and not in school anymore? But like, where are you from and what do you do / what are you studying are some very, very common questions. And like, it's a part of getting to know someone, but I still feel like those are really, really like surface level and like small talky, because the response is, it can be like one word. Like, where are you from? California. What do you do? Fitness. And like, so obviously that's not going to be conducive of conversation. So what I've started doing, and I actually have so far, I haven't done it a ton necessarily, but when I do ask it in this way, I feel like it generates a much more interesting response. So instead of just like the small talk stuff, and I'll even say like, hey, like, by the way, like, there's one stipulation here, like small talk is not allowed. So like, tell me where you're from, but not just where you're from. Tell me how it like molded you and shaped you. And then tell me like what you're studying / what you do, depending on if they're graduated or not. So tell me what you do, but why, not just what you do, but why you love it. So that opens up like, so then it's, I'm from California. How did it shape you? It gave me this very, very open mind, which in a place like Utah, where a lot of people are like really, really conservative and don't have much of an open mind, I stand out and have a much more open mind because I'm from Southern California. I also love the beach, like things like that. And then what do? I do fitness. And why do I love it? Because I get to wake up every single day and help people unlock a more full measure of their potential through fitness. Like, and that shows, those are bits and pieces of my soul. Like that is part of who I am. Knowing that my favorite color is green doesn't get...
Also, though, that's kind of like a first date. Most people don't want to bare their soul on a first date. But here's the thing. I'm kind of with you on that. Like, I really hated dating. I really, dude, my wife and I have had this discussion, and it makes me sound horrible, but I was like, listen, when I met you, like, there were probably plenty of times we probably should have broken up, and we both didn't, and we kept coming back to each other. And most of it was just, one, I really, really like you and you're good for me. And two, I just really hate dating.
Well, dating is the worst. It really is. It's so stupid.
You like in your case, like I was like, what if, so while you were talking, I was like, yeah, but what if you did something fun where you were like, okay, I'm going to ask you the surface questions, but you have to answer it. You have to make up an answer, but make me believe it. Like, and have some fun with it, and just like get a laugh or ask something completely random. But you can't do that, because if you're like, hey, listen, Captain Crunch or Fruity Pebbles, people are gonna be like, what the fuck? What is that? Like, they immediately think you're weird, and you just want to be like, no, I don't want to ask you, what do you do and where are you from?
Exactly. And so what's interesting, I haven't done this a ton necessarily, but it's one of my favorite early on dates. I've done it a handful of times. It's not like I do it every single time, because then it would just be overplayed. But I'll actually play one-on-one Scrabble, which sounds like the dumbest thing in the world, I know. But Like all the normal rules of Scrabble are thrown out. Like you can play made up words, you can play acronyms, you can play proper nouns, you can play foreign languages, whatever. That doesn't matter. But any word you do play, you have to connect back to a personal story from your life. So then you're telling stories about you, but it's never the usual like small talky things that you always hear on a first date. It's like the random story, like you play the word red and it's like, oh my gosh, the first car accident I ever got in, I hit this red car. And then it's that story. It connects because red and red, but then you're hearing like an actual story. And then in the midst of those stories, you get to hear like, oh yeah, and like my brother was in the car with me, like, oh, how many siblings do you have? Oh yeah, I've got an older brother and 2 little sisters. And you just keep on going and you like get all those surface level small talky things, but then you also hear these crazy stories about like, I don't know, one that I've shared on like an early on date with some girl that I'm like just barely getting to know. I've wet my pants as a full grown adult, like, and it's a really funny story. I've shared that as I'm like sitting and playing Scrabble with people or person. And it's obviously not something you would normally say on a date, but what I think is really cool about it is it's no longer that like, ooh, I'm going to seem perfect on this date. It's like, it forces people to just be themselves. And then you get to see that person for who they are rather than who they're like pretending to be, which often on a first date is just like, oh, hey, I'm this perfect person and you should go on another date with me. But it's just like, oh, this is like the real them. And that vulnerability leads to connection. And I love Brene Brown. So, of course, yeah, like I'm all about that sort of stuff.
Dude, that is a great date idea. And I might have to steal that. I got to see if we have a Scrabble board.
No, I have my own Scrabble board because of this.
That's a great date idea. Like
it's super fun.
To get those stories, open people up. I love that. I love that. Ben, I've enjoyed getting you back on the show. We're going to wrap up before we head into the DLC episode, which, guys, you got to get because we're going to nerd out on the name of the win.
It's going to be real good.
SideQuestFitness.com/DLC. Head over there. Sign up. It's for free. I'm not EA. I'm not Ubisoft. I'm not any other. Yeah. I'm not trying to microtransaction. Give me $1 for every DLC. I don't even want $20. It's free. I want you to.
The amount of money of mine that Blizzard made during my World of Warcraft time is incomprehensible.
Dude, the reason I have not gotten rid of my 360 is because I spent nearly $800 on Rock Band DLC.
Goodness.
And I don't want to get rid of my 360 because I'm like, I don't like. I want Rock Band on my Xbox One only because I have $800 worth of DLC.
That's so much. Wow.
Well, I did buy Lego Rock Band, AC/DC Rock Band, and then ported them over. I bought a bunch. Plus, if you count the full price of Rock Band and Rock Band 3 and Rock Band.
Yeah, I mean it all adds up, but
no, yeah. So Rock
it's just
Band
crazy
1,
to think of a lump
3.
sum.
Yeah,
like that was little bits and pieces, nickels and dimes over the course of a long time.
Right.
But it's like all added together. It's like, oh my gosh, whoa.
Yeah. So we're gonna nerd out on that. So head over to sidequestfitness.com/DLC. Ben, thank you so much for coming back on, guys. It is still bentrained.com, correct?
Yes. And that's honestly because my name is Ben Johnson. Social media is a little all over the place. Like Instagram is @_Ben Trained. Snapchat is just Ben Trained. Facebook is like Ben M Johnson 1. Like, so it's all over the place. The easiest thing would just be to go to the website. And then I am on Instagram a lot recently. So @_Ben Trained there. Honestly, reach out, guys. I'm a talkative fellow. So yeah. I'm happy to chat always.
Yeah. Maybe he'll give you some swanky date advice.
Maybe. I'm like an expert at this point. I'm almost 27 and single and a Mormon dude. So like I've gone on way too many dates for my own good.
Awesome. Well, guys, again, make sure you head over, check out bentrained.com. We're going to go into the DLC, which you can grab sidequestfitness.com/DLC.
Step up and you gotta get it fitness. Host Rob at the moment and the quest is you gotta check it and wreck it. You're breaking personal records and with the help of the guests you won't be guessing on the lessons. That's a +5 fierce. Got a low-key band right here. You wanna meet him, there's no better way to greet him than to strike a boss pose. Take a look into the mirror.